Yang ji jimbur zuzdan nimi zhang zonen munum jimbur nga gyata bakar targan zanto shirmarto. Tumba dirje janla ki sham tsar mechan rawar seringi jankamsa jagar tukji shanla yilarma. Jime panzo jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji.
The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. After we finish reciting the King of Aspiration prayers, let's listen here for a moment. There are some things I'd like to talk to everyone about. Today, we will continue our discussion of the Sutra of Great Liberation. This Sutra of Great Liberation is an important Buddhist text, and many of us may not have been particularly familiar with it before. However, through this process of study and reflection, I think everyone should, by now, have started to gain a clearer understanding of its teachings and significance, and compared to before, when we first studied it, gain a deeper understanding this time in many very important ways. However, we may still not be deep enough to study this sutra, because the Sutra of Great Liberation's most ultimate and profound meaning, if we want to fully comprehend it without any omission. I'm afraid that's not such a simple matter to deal with. So, during our process of studying these important teachings here, everyone should not treat it as just a simple scripture or some basic knowledge at this time. We should use our own sharpest wisdom to carefully and effectively make use of it, and then carefully analyze and thoroughly dissect it from a variety of different dimensions and perspectives, taking the time to consider each aspect in detail. By doing so, perhaps we will be able to grasp at least a part of its profound and deeper meaning. Also, by reading with our utmost respect and with the most sincere faith, approaching the text with a humble and open heart, and sincerely relying on the gracious blessings of the Buddhas and compassionate Bodhisattvas, we will also be able to understand its meaning. Just as it is stated in the Uttara Tantra Shastra, profound and truly supreme meanings are indeed realized through faith. Therefore, through these two approaches, in summary, we can truly come to know the ultimate hidden meaning and true essence of this scripture. From the perspective of conventional or commonly accepted appearances, as I mentioned earlier, you may recall, this scripture truly possesses great blessing power for all who study it in their hearts. It has even played a major role of immense importance in our history and traditions over time. Indeed, it has served as a central figure for countless practitioners throughout the ages, especially within Tibetan Buddhism in all its forms. This scripture is held in particularly high regard by everyone. As soon as the Sutra of Great Liberation is mentioned in conversation, almost no one is unfamiliar with it. Perhaps nowadays there are a very small number of young Tibetans, or some people who do not have faith, who might not know about this scripture. Just like the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch and the Diamond Sutra in Han Chinese regions, perhaps only an extremely limited number of non-Buddhists in the world today, at present, might not necessarily know about it or be aware of it, but the vast majority of Buddhists in general basically know it quite well. Tibetan area is distinctive from other places in this regard. It should be said that over 95% of the population are indeed Buddhists, regardless of whether they can express it outwardly or not. And despite various circumstances, in reality, they all have it in their hearts. So, since they are Buddhists, when it comes to the Sutra of Great Liberation, it can truly be said to be a household name, known by everyone. Yesterday, I went to a relatively small monastery. Their monastery also thoughtfully introduced some of their ancient sources of the three jewels. One of the items I noticed was a prayer wheel. It's basically the same kind of traditional prayer wheel that I use every day, about the same size, although maybe just a little bit smaller than the one I own. Out of curiosity, I asked, "What is this prayer wheel for?" They said, "This prayer wheel is the Sutra of Great Liberation." I asked them respectfully, "How many years of history does it have in total?" They said, "It has at least over 100 years of history." It was passed down by the abbots of their monastery, handed down through their lineage through the ages by devoted practitioners. As for exactly how it was originally passed down long ago, no one knows now at this moment with any certainty. The abbots have passed it down for at least 2 or 3 generations in succession. It's considered the most important cultural relic in the monastery. And they said that at this very moment, within the peaceful and quiet walls of their monastery, this is considered to be the most precious and treasured artifact that they have in their possession. Even the relevant local authorities from different departments have registered it as a key cultural relic that needs special protection. So I think we can all see that if it were opened for everyone today, I believe it would just be that the scripture is a bit old and worn, that's all. In fact, it is the text of the Holy Great Liberation Sutra. Other than that, there shouldn't be anything. But its value is also indeed quite good for everyone. Its blessing or its power, that's what it is in people's minds and inner consciousness. So we will, including what I have learned up to now, the text of the Holy Great Liberation Sutra. You can also save it for your own personal reference, if you wish. In fact, the value of preservation is very important in our society, but there are many of us. Some places in Asia don't particularly like to preserve things. Instead, they just throw everything away at a certain time. So, what exactly do we need to preserve? It is our spiritual wealth. Just like some books or related materials today now, those that are connected to our faith deeply within us, these treasures should be passed down continuously through generations, with care always. They are truly meaningful for our spiritual development. So I think all of us here today, if we don't have any faith in these teachings, for those who lack any motivation in their hearts, when we see these Dharma texts, they are simply books, nothing more after all. But if we have faith, or even if we value the importance of transmission deeply today, then even the very essence, as some might suggest clearly, every copy of the Sutra of Great Liberation you hold in your hands should carry profound significance. And it should always continue to be this way in the future as well. In the past, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok was studying in Sershul while he was there, one of his root guru's books, and inside the book was a copy of the Luminous Essence, as well as the great commentary on the Luminous Essence by the omniscient Longchenpa. There were some annotations written by the guru inside that were very precious and rare indeed then. Later, at Larungar, he also showed it to us at that time with great reverence and care. When the guru was studying back then, in his youth long ago himself, he had received his guru's Dharma text directly, and there were some detailed annotations inside carefully written down, just like this precious example, for example, here today. If we don't have any faith at all, don't value history, or people who value blessings, it might just be black words on white paper, nothing more. Other than that, there may not be much to it. So sometimes now, the knowledge that we learn and acquire here today is not just about theoretical communication and concepts. There should be deeper layers of meaning as well for us to understand. As human beings, we are actually not entirely materialists when we examine our innermost beliefs. There is also a spiritual aspect. If we talk about the spiritual aspect, there are many subjective and objective elements. And on the subjective side, there are certain things we are able to perceive, and there are things that we simply cannot perceive. The obvious, the hidden, and the many subtle layers of meaning within. Some people might analyze and value these things, while others just treat the objective aspects of real life, those related to their own physical bodies, as the only things worth paying attention to. In that case, the benefits that they gain are limited to just that and nothing more. It might only satisfy your physical senses and may not offer anything more beyond that, including things like religion and art, as well as other important philosophical aspects in the field. So when we talk about science nowadays, in fact, science is primarily a discipline for materialists and, generally speaking, can be considered a high-level field of study. However, when it comes to in-depth research and results on spiritualism, on the spiritual level beyond the material that truly matters, there is very little to guide them forward. So nowadays, many people around the world in modern society are basically scientific materialists in today's very modern world. That is to say, materialists by their very own nature. As for the deeper truths within the mind, they may not understand much about them either. Even when such things appear, they rarely truly understand or take an interest in them. If they want to delve deeper and study these things, there are fewer and fewer people who actually choose to do so. In this case, most of humanity's suffering may actually come from the mind, while some suffering comes from material things. So now, as human beings, what can we actually solve? We can only solve some of the issues on the material level, and as for the mental or emotional level, there are also more superficial kinds of suffering, as well as more hidden, deeply and subtle forms of suffering that exist within us. Some of these, perhaps, can be addressed with our current cultural context and our understanding and knowledge. But for some issues, we must rely on religion or other deeper approaches in order to relieve our own suffering. So sometimes we humans really do seem to be just like animals. As long as we have food and clothing, does that mean our suffering will be reduced? Will all our suffering simply disappear? Not necessarily. The suffering within our hearts arises from all kinds of causes and conditions. And to resolve it, we also need a variety of methods and approaches. I believe everyone can understand this point as well. So today we will continue to talk about, briefly, the Buddhas of the past, present, and future in all directions throughout time and space. Actually, these names of the Buddhas are not originally. I wanted to recite all 300 or so Buddha names very carefully and clearly directly for everyone here at this moment today now together. I also recited them in Tibetan, but it seems that this might not be particularly suitable. So for some of the Buddha names, we may have already encountered them in other scriptures or texts, so I will give everyone a brief introduction. Some Buddha names, however, only appear in the Sutra of Buddha names, as well as the Sutra of the 1,000 Buddhas of the past and present aeons, and the Sutra of the 1,000 Buddhas of the future constellation aeon. There are these different scriptures. Most of these scriptures are currently available in the Chinese language, and some are also available in Tibetan. But in Chinese and English, in many different cases and situations, some places do not have these names. If these names are not available, when everyone is learning about them, you can only understand them in a relatively limited way. In fact, whether you are familiar with these Buddha names or recite them regularly on a regular basis as part of your practice, it is also a practice of great merit. One scripture says from ancient times clearly now, those who uphold the names of Buddhas with devotion for countless eons without any fail whatsoever will be freed from the sins of birth and death and swiftly attain Buddhahood completely. If we uphold the names of Buddhas throughout our entire lives faithfully, then throughout hundreds of thousands of eons, the karmic sins of birth and death that we have accumulated will be eliminated. And also one can attain Buddhahood in a very short time. As Buddhists, everyone should also understand it is important to note that whether we recite the Buddha's name or uphold the Buddha's name by sincerely reciting it, or even carefully carve the Buddha's name into stone or thoughtfully engrave it on other objects as a way to show respect and devotion, all of these also bring great merit. In Han Chinese regions, upholding and reciting the Buddha's name is also highly valued, and it is also highly valued in Tibetan regions. However, in some places, people don't know why they recite the Buddha's name. For them it seems that, in terms of their own personal feelings, there is really no genuine connection. In this case, they might not truly understand the merit and benefits of reciting the Buddha's name themselves. For example, some people who practice Zen meditation feel that when their mind calms down and they observe their own mind, they seem to gain something from it. When practicing yoga in a very quiet space, through physical exercise, it seems to help with weight loss or healing illnesses of many different kinds today. Or sometimes, when we go jogging outside, it also helps with physical fitness. But what benefit or merit does reciting the Buddha's name have? Some people might think this way. In fact, when it comes to reciting the Buddha's name, one benefit is that it calms the mind. When you wholeheartedly recite the Buddha's name, for example, when our minds are restless and agitated, at that moment, if you wholeheartedly recite the name of Amitabha Buddha, or the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, or any of the many Buddha's names we have here, then quite naturally, your mind will begin to settle down. In this way, you are actually connecting with these Buddhas. The wisdom of the Buddha, the compassion of the Buddha, you can form a kind of connection, a connection like this, and your own mind will gradually become more peaceful and calm. On one hand, it serves as a kind of spiritual remedy. As a spiritual remedy, through consistently upholding and reciting, we can gain this kind of spiritual benefit. Just like with medicines in the world, often some may be taken in different ways according to individual needs, whether by eating them or through massage and various bodywork, or even by applying them to the body as a treatment. There are all kinds of situations, right? In the same way, the Buddha's name, or the Buddha himself, which symbolize profound wisdom and immeasurable compassion, can be connected with through our own sincere and mindful recitation. Naturally, we receive the blessings of the Buddha. For things like this, people who don't recite the Buddha's name might not feel anything. But once you truly recite the Buddha's name, then at a certain point, just like when we practice Zen meditation, wow, reciting these Buddha names really does reduce the afflictions in our own mind stream. Suffering is also lessened over time, quite gradually. Moreover, everything you do seems to be accomplished very easily and very smoothly. Some results can be seen immediately in real time, while others may not be obvious right away. But this fundamental law of cause and effect of both good and bad consequences will never be wasted or in vain throughout your entire lifetime. So in this regard, everyone should give it a try without any hesitation or real doubt. Some people who don't have faith, because you weren't very familiar with this kind of principle before, aren't very familiar with it. Anyone who isn't very familiar with a certain principle, when you first ask them to try it, they may perhaps have doubts and all sorts of concerns. For example, someone who has never taken Western medicine before, if you ask them to take Western medicine, they might wonder, will there be any side effects? And whether this medicine will actually have an effect on my body or not at all. But such doubts today, to someone who is very familiar with Western medicine and science, seem quite laughable indeed. After all, this is medicine itself, so why would he possibly think that way about it? So for us human beings, perhaps due to various regional reasons, because of cultural differences sometimes in different contexts, and because of the different customs and beliefs in various places, everyone has different personal habits and individual beliefs. And anything that is truly beneficial or helpful to oneself, whether it's a miraculous remedy on the spiritual level, or a miraculous remedy on the material level today now, if one already has experience and knowledge in this area deeply within, then in the end ultimately they are especially willing to accept it completely, wholeheartedly. But once they are separated from it, or if they can't obtain it, they may become extremely anxious and will definitely try every possible way to get it. However, there are a few individuals, because of their own particular circumstances and conditions, they have never been exposed to this aspect at all. And even if they have been exposed, they really haven't gone in depth. They only have a very superficial understanding of it. Just a very simple grasp, that's all. In this case, they cannot truly understand the profound causes and conditions that exist within it and under such circumstances. One should also consider having another approach or another mindset to accept it. This is just a brief explanation here for your understanding. Next, we talked about the Buddhas of the past. At this time, the world-honored one said, reciting their names aloud, reciting the names of these Buddhas of the 3 times, past, present, and future, singing or proclaiming these words for everyone to hear. That is the meaning here. The phrase Namo is used to pay respect to the countless Buddhas of the past, and what follows is a repeated recitation of Namo Buddha. I have also previously asked some people about this, seeking their thoughts and understanding. Since it's clearly pronounced Nanwu, why do we say Namo? But as for this Namo, in these days in our Chinese dictionaries, it's almost all pronounced Wu. But in ancient times, this character could also be pronounced Mo, including some modern Minnan dialects, because most translations before the Tang dynasty used some Buddhist scriptures and classical Chinese styles for translation. In that case, in classical Chinese, many were pronounced Namo. Even for the character Wu, it is said that in Korean dictionaries nowadays, especially in some of the older dictionaries, they all have the pronunciation Mo. For example, Wusheng would be pronounced Mo Sheng, right? There are such cases. So, as for this Namo, nowadays you might not find it in the dictionary, but it might have existed in earlier Cantonese or Minnan dialects, because in ancient China, the official language for a time in the Tang dynasty, for example, was close to Cantonese. Later, in the Song dynasty, it might have been closer to Minnan dialect. By the Qing dynasty, the official languages like Northeastern, Beijing, and Mandarin became the main forms of major language. So sometimes in different eras of ancient Chinese civilization or at different stages over many centuries, the pronunciation of Chinese has always varied quite dramatically indeed. Now in Sanskrit language traditionally, the word is Namo precisely, and in Tibetan it's actually also Namo.
Namo
In Tibetan, it's actually always Namo. Actually, Namo means to pay homage. It's said that nowadays, even in some other places around the world, religions like Islam, in some contexts, there is also a word like Namo in sacred texts. Namo means to pay homage from the heart, or to show great respect and reverence to the other party with very complete sincerity. It also carries this meaning. So in this case, in our context, every Buddha's name is preceded by Namo, which means to pay homage beforehand. For example, you might say, pay homage to the countless Buddhas of the past, or recite Namo 20,000 Sun and Moon Lamp Buddha as a way of expressing deep respect. The Sun and Moon Lamp Buddha, in fact, actually, some of the Buddha names mentioned here, for those who have studied the Lotus Sutra, some of these names can basically be remembered. Even I, personally, have forgotten some of the Buddha names myself. But there are some teachings that, in fact, everyone should be able to remember clearly today now. This Buddha is actually very important and significant as well, indeed, always. As for the Sun and Moon Lamp Buddha, hearing his name ensures one will not fall into the 3 lower realms. In the Lotus Sutra as well today, the Sun and Moon Lamp Buddha also taught with great wisdom at that time long ago then, the teachings of initial goodness, intermediate goodness, and final goodness. At that time, the Sun and Moon Lamp Buddha was also teaching, and in the Lotus Sutra it is clearly stated that among the Buddhas of the past, this Buddha's name, there are 20,000 Sun and Moon Lamp Buddhas. So in the entire past, so many have appeared. Sometimes we might even have some repeated Dharma names. For example, if my name is Yuan something, Yuan, some people get especially worried, wondering what to do. Will it be a problem after I die? If someone calls that name, will I also look up? Actually, it's really not a big deal at all today. There are actually so many Buddhas with the same name throughout history. It seems like there are actually fewer people with the same name as me, but some people deliberately choose my name. There are also cases like this online. If you have the same name as me, you should also pay attention. Then let us pay homage to the 30,000 Dipankara Buddhas. As for Dipankara Buddha, when Shakyamuni Buddha first generated his aspiration, he also generated bodhicitta in front of Dipankara Buddha. Actually, the Dipankara Buddha mentioned below, as well as the Buddha of universal light, are quite similar in appearance. In our tradition, including in Han Chinese regions, it is common that in some Mahavira halls, if there are representations of the past, future, and present Buddhas, for the past Buddha, some often depict figures such as Dipankara Buddha, and the present Buddha is Shakyamuni Buddha currently. The future Buddha is Maitreya Buddha, clearly indeed. Even now today, some Mahavira halls have this traditional sacred arrangement still. In some other different Mahavira halls worldwide, everywhere, the Eastern Buddha is Medicine Buddha, the present Buddha is Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the central Buddha, and the Western Buddha is known as Amitabha Buddha. Perhaps when you visit some temples, you may notice that each temple's Mahavira hall often has a slightly different way of depicting the Buddha statues. Some, when making Buddha statues, often only have a single Shakyamuni Buddha present here now, with Sariputra and Maudgalyayana on either side standing faithfully. Some also have the Western 3 saints depicted clearly too. In any case, this Dipankara Buddha then Great Penetration Wisdom Victory Buddha, now here. In fact, there used to be a Buddha called Great Penetration Wisdom Victory Buddha long ago then. As for Great Penetration Wisdom Victory Buddha today, next is 16 Buddhas named Prince, as mentioned below clearly indeed. These two are essentially the same, in fact. It also seems to be mentioned in the Lotus Sutra. The previous Great Penetration Wisdom Victory Buddha long ago in history. In fact, he used to be a king with great power and authority. Later, his 16 princes renounced the household life and became monks together faithfully. When the 16 princes became monks, then finally, because the king had also become a monk before them long ago in time, after ordaining with great devotion then, he became the Great Penetration Wisdom Victory Buddha himself completely. Later on, the 16 princes became enlightened too eventually. At the time when he attained Buddhahood, these 16 became 16 novice monks, Shramaneras. They were also in front of this Buddha. Previously they had a father-son relationship. Now it should be understood as a relationship between the Buddha and his disciples. Later, these 16 individuals became ordained as monks in front of the Buddha. Then they listened to the Dharma and practiced. After a very long time, they also attained Buddhahood. Upon attaining Buddhahood, they are called Namo 16 Prince Buddhas. Some of them are called Prince Buddhas. But here specifically, they are collectively referred to as the 16 Buddhas named Prince clearly today in this text. Namo to the great Gaganaraja Buddha respectfully. As for the Gaganaraja Buddha, perhaps it seems that he also appears in the Lotus Sutra, right? At that time, long ago, Shakyamuni Buddha and Venerable Ananda became recognized as brothers in the Dharma together faithfully. But one placed great importance on spiritual practice, while the other valued extensive learning and broad knowledge. The one who was broadly learned was Venerable Ananda. The one who practiced diligently was the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. Because he enjoyed actual practicing, he progressed quickly and attained Buddhahood. As for Venerable Ananda, he loved studying theoretical knowledge. He kept studying, but in the end he still didn't attain the Bodhisattva stage, only the Arhat stage. After the Buddha entered nirvana, finally then, in the distant future time ahead, Venerable Ananda will also eventually become the one who faithfully upholds the precious Dharma treasury of future Buddhas, becoming like that exactly indeed. Namo to Gaganaraja Buddha respectfully now. As for Gaganaraja Buddha specifically, at that time, within the Buddha's profound sacred teachings, he also made such a sincere heartfelt vow. Then, with great respect and reverence, we say Namo to Prabhutaratna Buddha. As for Prabhutaratna Buddha, as we mentioned earlier, whenever any Buddha to propagate the profound Lotus Sutra, Prabhutaratna Buddha gently emerges from the deep earth below slowly and peacefully, in the form of a stupa, crafted from 7 treasures, and then bears witness. Among the countless various Buddha's teachings, the Lotus Sutra is especially supreme in various ways. He also shares a significant portion of his seat with the Buddha of that time to help spread this Dharma. Such is the Tathagata Prabhutaratna. Whoever hears the name of Tathagata Prabhutaratna also gains great merit, accumulating virtue and blessings through this positive action. Namo King of Lamps, that is Lord among the clouds. Buddha, who is honored and respected for his compassion and wisdom. King of Lamps, that is Lord among the clouds. Buddha should also be like this, embodying these admirable qualities and serving as a guiding example for all practitioners. In fact, the great King of Lamps, that is Lord among the clouds, Buddha above us here, is actually the Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva, who was specifically mentioned in the Lotus Sutra long ago, clearly. During that particular period, it should have been before this Buddha attained Buddhahood. Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva at that time was present. It seems to have transmitted the Lotus Sutra to him, it is believed. Later on, he eventually attained Buddhahood. As for the question of where Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva actually received this important lineage, actually we will talk about it in the next section. Namo, the most venerable, honored King of the Sound of Generosity Buddha. At the time when King of the Sound of Generosity period was ongoing, Sadaparibhuta Bodhisattva received the guidance of a King of the Sound of Generosity. That is to say, this refers to his transmission. At that particular time, he received the precious Lotus Sutra. It was due to such causes and conditions that he was able to obtain this Dharma. There should be mention of the king of the sound of generosity Buddha in the Lotus Sutra, Namo Amitabha Buddha. As for Amitabha Buddha, he is also mentioned in the Sutra of the names of Buddhas that the Buddha spoke, Namo virtuously contemplating. In some texts, it's written as Buddha of good contemplation. I'm not sure about the version in Dunhuang. I didn't have time to check. It seems that it is referred to as the Buddha of virtuously contemplating. However, in some versions, it is called contemplating goodness. In other words, a Buddha who contemplates wholesome dharmas, Namo Nirmanakaya Buddha. As for the Buddhas of Nirmanakaya, they are actually also mentioned in the Lotus Sutra long ago clearly, Namo Buddha of Nirmanakaya respectfully. This one doesn't seem to appear in the Sutra of the names of Buddhas. It's included in the Tibetan version. Both the Buddhas of Nirmanakaya as well as these two Buddhas are present here together. Namo to the Buddha of glorious brilliance of the sun and moon, who radiates light and wisdom. This Buddha is also specifically mentioned in the Lotus Sutra. In fact, it should be in the 6th volume. This Buddha of glorious brilliance of the sun and moon also appears there. At that time, he gave teachings to a bodhisattva named Bodhisattva Joyful to See by all beings. He then transmitted the Dharma to him, enabling him to enter samadhi of deep concentration. In the end, he attained an extraordinary fruition. That's roughly how I remember it clearly now today. Namo to the great Buddha Wisdom, King of Constellations, Pure Lotus, respectfully here. This sacred, enlightened Buddha Wisdom, King of Constellations, Pure Lotus, is actually, as referenced in the scripture, known as the Sutra of the Names of Buddhas. There's also Namo to the great and powerful Buddha King of completely pure ornamentation here today now. This particular one is also clearly found in the sacred ancient Sutra of the Names of Buddha's text long ago. Namo King Noble Naga Buddha. As for King Noble Naga Buddha, some sutras refer to him as Buddha King of the Supreme Dragon lineage. It is said to be Manjushri Bodhisattva. This is recorded in various different scriptures. He can also be called the Buddha of the 3 times. Manjushri Bodhisattva is an appearance manifested before sentient beings. In fact, he can also be called a Buddha of the past, or a Buddha of the present, or a Buddha of the future time ahead, coming soon. In the past long ago then, he could be called King Noble Naga Buddha with reverence always. He is also one of the Buddhas in the confession text of the 35 Buddhas. It appears to be the Buddha with 7 dragons resting on his head clearly now. Manjushri Bodhisattva at this time today, in the present moment here, in the current pure land realm, also manifests in the form of a Buddha to guide sentient beings compassionately. What is the name of this Buddha? This particular Buddha is called Buddha Manaraja with reverence. As for the future, well, Manjushri Bodhisattva will also appear in the form of the Buddha of the future. This is referred to as Universal Vision Buddha, Universal Vision Tathagata, and is universally seen by all beings. This is indeed the King Noble Naga Buddha. Namo to King Thundering Cloud Buddha, respectfully here, in the pure blessed land of a certain specific Buddha realm, which is also mentioned clearly in the sacred ancient Lotus Sutra text. There is a Bodhisattva whose name is Wonderful Sound. Bodhisattva Wonderful Sound is known for making offerings to many Buddhas with deep respect and devotion. Among the Buddhas to whom he has made offerings, one is called the Cloud Thunder Sound King Buddha. Namo Cloud Thunder Sound Constellation King Buddha. This is not, just to clarify, lodging host, but Constellation King, right? It should be Cloud Thunder Sound Constellation King Buddha. As for Cloud Thunder Sound Constellation King Buddha, it is important to note that in some Buddhist scriptures there are also such accounts that mention this Buddha. At that time, Cloud Thunder Sound Constellation King Buddha was present. In the world where he ultimately attained Buddhahood, there was once a wise and noble king. This wise and beloved king had 2 sons. Later, both of the sons standing respectfully in front of the Buddha, both of them in front of the Buddha here now today, let me check carefully. Then, in front of the Buddha there, they earnestly studied Buddhism diligently, carefully. They should have properly become monks then, eventually. Later on, together with their beloved devoted mother, they also tried to find a way to bring their father, the king, tried to let their father was called King Wonderful Adornment. At that particular time, inspired by their father's noble example and the important values he taught them carefully, get their father to truly have faith in the teachings of Buddhism. But he was always indeed very deeply and firmly entrenched in wrong views. Later, these two sons respectfully asked the Buddha if there was possibly any way to get their father to take refuge in Buddhism. Then the Buddha said, "As long as you bring him here, if he sees me, there should be a way." But the king firmly refused to go. So a little while later, right there in front of him, they displayed all kinds of miraculous powers. Because of these miracles, he finally went to see the Buddha after spending a long time searching for answers to his questions. After meeting the Buddha, he listened carefully and eventually attained realization. So, what is the origin of this story? There was a king called Wonderful Adornment. King Wonderful Adornment at that particular point in time was holding some wrong views. What was the reason for this? This is a question that is also explained in the Buddhist scriptures, which provide guidance and insight into such matters. In the past, as described in these ancient texts, there were 4 monks who practiced together as a group. During their period of practice, if 4 people practiced together and no one took the initiative, then eventually later one of them said, "I will serve you all, so you can begin your practice." As a result, the 3 who practiced attained realization. But the one who made the initial aspiration, because he made the aspiration to serve them, he did not attain realization. So they began to make vows. They thought of ways, in various thoughtful ways, to prepare to liberate him in the next life. The one who made the aspiration became a king with wrong views. As for the 3 who attained realization on the surface, they each became the king's 2 sons and his wife, who were all very dear to him. Through the power of their solemn vows, in this lifetime they were able to liberate him. There are stories like this as well, which are very notable and significant indeed. Next, Namo Maniraja Buddha respectfully is also specifically mentioned in the Sutra of Buddha names. Then, Namo to King Saltri Buddha respectfully here today with devotion, always now, present, eternally, forever. King Saltri Buddha clearly and wisely, in fact, had also compassionately given a special and very important prophecy prediction long ago then to the previously mentioned great King Wonderful Adornment, sincerely with deep compassion and grace. He is also mentioned in the Lotus Sutra, which is a highly respected scripture in Mahayana Buddhism. The phrase Namo Supreme Majestic Jewel King Buddha is a title expressing deep reverence. Likewise, Namo Radiant King Buddha refers to the Buddha's radiant qualities and his role as a guiding light for all beings. Radiant King Buddha, we talked about him the other day, the well-known figure. This is mentioned in the Avatamsaka Sutra. Modgalyayana observed the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha. He didn't go to a Western Pure Land, but to a land called the Banner of Light Pure Land. In this place, the Buddha has an adorned and majestic appearance, and the Arhat disciples are also especially tall and dignified. Then, when he was standing right beside a bowl, he curiously asked, "Where did this little bug actually come from?" That Buddha was called Radiant King Buddha. Namo 100 billion steadfast light Buddha. As for this 100 billion steadfast light Buddha, it is said in the Sutra of Unprecedented Causes and Conditions that this Buddha once, together with Shakyamuni Buddha and the Brahmin woman Yasodhara, they once offered flowers and made aspirations. And at that time, they also received a prophecy that after 91 kalpas, they would attain Buddhahood, and the Buddha would be named Shakyamuni Buddha. This 100 billion steadfast light Buddha. As for this steadfast light Buddha, steadfast light means unchanging light. The word steadfast also carries the meaning of firmness or immovability. Next, with reverence, Namo, the revered distant light Buddha. From this distant light Buddha all the way to the later ones, there is one called Namo Worldly Buddha. As for the ones in between, in the Infinite Life Sutra, basically, the name of each Buddha is already listed. When it's convenient for you today now, you can also cross-check them carefully, please, because some of the Buddha names we have appear in different sutras as well, clearly. I wonder if any of you remember this indeed. Because at the beginning of the Infinite Life Sutra, from the opening chapter all the way to a later section, it's all about the names of these Buddhas. We have studied this before as well. Many of the Buddha names are quite familiar to us. Some we have explained before, and a few more of them we haven't yet explained. This is because some Buddha names are not always so easy to explain. However, regardless, in the long history of Buddhism, having these kinds of records is actually very good. Even in our worldly history today, here now present, including some important and meaningful family traditions passed down in our homes carefully, lovingly, which have been passed down from generation to generation faithfully, always, at a certain point in time, many names in the world may eventually disappear. But when it comes to the Buddha, it's different. Indeed, in human history as well, the Buddha has made tremendous contributions, so his is just like a hero in our world, or a famous person in the world. The names of those who have made contributions will never be erased, just like that. There is also such a karmic connection. Also, in our current human history, as we understand it today, we only have documented records of a few thousand years of history. However, some things can truly be said to transcend history. You could call it a history ahead of its time. The history of human development is merely a theory temporarily established by a few individuals like Darwin, a view that has been set for us for the time being. In fact, in various religions and fields of philosophy, the actual history of humanity, the history of our entire world, is not necessarily exactly the kind of history that we all currently believe in. So whether it's the humans of the past or the entire world in the past, the dignity of these past worlds, sometimes when we look at them with our current perspective, our present-day wisdom, and the knowledge we have gained over time, it's not quite rich enough, including all of us, if you happen to have a truly deep and thorough understanding of the history of ancient human civilizations, then you might discover that what everyone now commonly believes right here today is just what people currently think and understand clearly. But as for people today in this present time, the ideas of a few famous people, a few scholars, the ideologies they dominate are only the collective thoughts of people, at least for the time being. So sometimes it might be very necessary for us to let go of our own personal assertions and opinions humbly here today now. The true and complete history of humanity, the actual history of the world, still has many aspects that go beyond our way of thinking, beyond our rules. If we look at history from this perspective, it should be quite fascinating and enlightening indeed, truly. We can explore the rich, diverse culture of ancient Egypt or the profound, beautiful culture of ancient Greece, including the cultures of ancient India and the ancient East, deeply carefully. You should come to understand that even though most people think this way now here today commonly, such ideas may not necessarily be correct or accurate always truly. For example, nowadays in modern times, we basically have lighting everywhere. This is the kind of world we live in now. But this way of life, this particular context in our world, perhaps in a few hundred or even a few thousand years from now, if someone were to try to describe this unique way of living, many people might not even believe it. When I came to Larungar over 30 years ago, back then there was no electricity or roads in Larungar. Our way of life at that time was completely going up the mountain to collect firewood and cow dung ourselves, then carrying it back to use ourselves. We would dig up some mud bricks, living almost like very primitive people, just like the Yuanmu people of Yunnan back in those days. But now, when we tell these young monks or young people about this, saying, actually, as I recall, 20 or 30 years ago, this is how we lived in this place. And they say, that's impossible. Don't tell me stories. Really, it hasn't even been 100 years yet. Sometimes when I talk to those young lamas, how we used to eat back then, how we read books at night, how, during the day, we would walk all the way to the county town, which was more than 20 kilometers away from where we lived, just to buy a bottle of kerosene and a bag of flour. On the way back, we'd run into dogs on the road, or encounter all sorts of things like this and that. They just think I'm making up stories or exaggerating things. But actually, this event was very, very recent, not even 100 years ago, and in fact, not even 50 years ago. Our human worldview is, as a matter of fact, very easily changed. And when it does change, indeed, It's because what we see with our eyes and think in our minds is extremely, extremely limited. Its scope is very narrow and limited indeed today always. As a result, we end up having many such ideas here now constantly, and many of our concepts become vague and unclear increasingly. This is something truly worth reflecting on deeply today. Of course, we're not saying that everything we say is correct. That's not what we mean necessarily. Throughout the entire history of humanity, wherever there is genuine truth, it should always be accepted without hesitation. Just as we've discussed before, I do not stand from the Buddha's perspective, nor from the viewpoint of the Gelugpa school, or from the perspective of any other school. We should only stand from a fair and impartial standpoint to accept the truth. This is very important and significant, truly meaningful. So, regarding these names of the Buddhas right before us, some of you might wonder how to pray with proper respect, or how to connect with the Buddha yourself in a deep, sincere way. In this way available today, we can gain a lot of wisdom and valuable knowledge through practice and gradually increase our own profound understanding with dedication. Just now we mentioned Namo Far-Reaching Light Buddha. Among these, the names of the Buddhas are for the most part also found in the Sutra of the names of Buddhas. And as mentioned earlier, some are found in other texts as well. Then Namo Kandaprabha Buddha is included in the Sutra of the names of the 1,000 Buddhas of the present auspicious eon. Namo Sandalwood Incense Buddha is also found in the Sutra of the names of Buddhas. Namo King of Excellent Mountains Buddha, respectfully here today. Namo Mount Sumeru, possessing the divine top knot with devotion always. Namo Light equal to Mount Sumeru, sincerely now present eternally. Namo Shape of the Moon respectfully. Namo Right Mindfulness Buddha with true devotion. Namo Stainless Buddha of perfect purity. Namo Desireless Buddha beyond attachment. Namo Nagadeva Buddha in compassion. Namo Immovable Ground, Buddha with firmness. So in this section, all of these are found in the Sutra of the Names of Buddhas. As mentioned earlier, some are also found in other important texts. Namo Supreme Flower Buddha. As for Supreme Flower Buddha mentioned in Buddhist texts of old, it is found in the Maharatnakutta Sutra as written down by masters. When Supreme Flower Buddha attained Buddhahood in the distant past out of great mercy, there was a wheel-turning king of righteous virtue and wisdom. This wheel-turning king, a great and noble ruler, had 1,000 sons. Later he also had 2 children who were quite miraculously born into the world. So in total, throughout his entire life, he ended up having a remarkable number of children, specifically 1,002 in all. Just now here today, these 2 miraculously born children respectfully, humbly became monastics in front of Supreme Flower Buddha, sincerely, devotedly. Later, the wheel-turning king himself eventually found out, finally becoming aware of it, that his 2 miraculously born sons, who were both raised with great care, had become Buddhist monks there at that place. He himself also developed a strong sense of renunciation towards samsara. Then he took 999 of his sons with him, as well as 84,000 consorts, and they all went together peacefully, joyfully now to become monastics, there humbly, devotedly, sincerely. He handed over his throne completely, fully to his eldest son, leaving everything to that one son faithfully, entirely. That eldest son felt a bit lonely, since everyone else had become monastics and only he inherited the throne. So he began to travel around in search, because as a wheel-turning king, he went everywhere seeking and saw the actions and behaviors of people in this world and found nothing truly reliable. Then he developed a profound sense of renunciation. He composed several verses, and one of the verses I remember goes like this. He said, "My father and my relatives have all become monastics. Countless sentient beings have also renounced the world for the sake of the Dharma." He said, "Whether it is my father or my relatives, family members, brothers and sisters, they have all become monastics, and there are countless others." Countless here is probably just a figurative number. Anyway, an extremely large number of sentient beings have also renounced the world for the sake of the Dharma. He said they have all become monastics. So now, as for me, I also want to become a monastic in this life. How was he going to renounce the world to practice the path? He said, if you aspire to renounce the world and leave behind all desires that bind you, you should quickly follow my Dharma with diligence. The chance to be free from difficulties is extremely rare indeed. You should hurry and join me. The opportunity to become a monastic is very rare. Come renounce the world with me. As a result, everyone across the entire country all became monastics. Now, many people say, what if everyone actually became monastics? So how would they be supported? How would they live? Afterwards, relying on the merit and virtue generated by everyone in the country becoming monastics to practice the Dharma with devotion, natural crops grew all over the land without cultivation or effort, and the trees provided natural clothing as blessings. There were also many celestial beings who offered all kinds of food and clothing in reverence and gratitude. Various foods and drinks were constantly provided and served. Of course, this is a story from the Buddhist scriptures, told exactly as it is in the original text. I'm not saying that everyone should become a monastic. As for becoming a monastic, I personally think that nowadays one should be very careful about ordaining. Don't rush into it. Some lamas, some tulkus, and some khenpos, they are all irresponsible towards others and immediately say, if you want to become a monastic, just do it. If you want to shave your head, just do it. But in reality, the life of a monastic is not that simple. Why do I say this? Because when it comes to ordination, on one hand, many people act on impulse, and their renunciation is not strong enough. Like those kings I mentioned earlier, they truly possessed a profound sense of renunciation. Once you have this quality of renunciation, it becomes much easier to move forward, to attain realization as well. So first of all, I think for many monastics, the first issue is that their renunciation is insufficient. Either they've experienced emotional or psychological setbacks, or they're facing difficulties in society and can't find a job. If you become a monastic for these reasons, then that kind of motivation is very problematic. Within the monastic community, such people are a bad influence and serve no real purpose, because they can't make it in society. Their character is especially poor, or they've already suffered emotional setbacks. I think it's best for people like this not to become monastics. If someone can't find a job, is especially lazy, or has family issues, and they become a monastic, then within the monastic community, they also pose a significant and potentially hidden danger. That's one aspect. There's also a second aspect. After ordaining, actually, especially nowadays, many people, because if you don't take care of your parents or your children at home, that's not really acceptable either. It might not be like in Tibetan areas, where if someone becomes a monk, their parents typically have several other children in addition. And even if they don't have any siblings at this time, or even if you have no relatives at all in the area around you, the local villagers, out of pure compassion, will still help take care of your parents with loving care as their own. But nowadays in big cities, even one's own children often won't take care of their elderly parents. Many elderly people, just look at Japan now, in many big cities, some elderly people have been dead for several months already. And only when people in the city nearby noticed a terrible smell and wondered why, did they finally discover that the elderly person had died at home. No one called, no one cared. In situations like this, after all, they are your parents, your family. If you don't take care of them, if you do not take responsibility for yourself, then no one else in this world will. That is also considered to be an irresponsible attitude. And also, after you have become a monk, can you truly keep and uphold the precepts for your entire life without ever breaking them or giving up on your commitment? Can you truly remain a monastic for your entire life? Because as a monk, if you have an especially good environment, if there is a very good monastery, then perhaps you can uphold the precepts and everything else from beginning to end. But now it seems that in many various different places in general, the living conditions for monks are unfortunately not so optimistic. For example, in Han regions or in many other places, there are age restrictions for ordination, as well as restrictions based on education and identity. And there are also some sectarian restrictions. There are even cases where, if your character is not good at all, or there are issues in various other aspects you encounter, in the end, wherever you stay, you may find that this place doesn't work for you, and that place doesn't work as well, and so on. The case I am sharing today may be related to this topic, but what I just talked about may not necessarily correspond completely. But I am also speaking from the bottom of my heart. Back when I first started, I encouraged one to be a monk. Do it. The merit of ordaining for a day is inconceivable. From the perspective of merit, from the Buddhist point of view, like when we talk about the Sutra on praising the merit of the Sangha, if you support ordination, there is so much merit to be gained. But if you create obstacles, there are such great faults. This is something I also understand clearly. But merit is merit, and the practical issues we face now are things that we simply cannot ignore. If we all act too impulsively, without carefully considering our own family matters, nor thinking about our own personal future paths, just because there happens to be such a good opportunity right now, and you ask me to shave your head. I've seen some people on the road who keep their heads respectfully bowed on the path ahead, then carefully place the scissors here in the proper position and do it like this step by step. This kind of ceremony, shaving the head, is actually quite simple and straightforward, because shaving the head at most takes 10 minutes or even just 5 minutes. But shaving the head is easy, keeping the precepts is hard. If things keep going like this, you need to think it through carefully, especially for someone becoming a monk. Very least, there shouldn't be any issues with their character. If you ordain this way, it will benefit spreading the Dharma and sentient beings. But if even your character is lacking, and your usual behavior is erratic and unstable, then for such a person to become a monk, it really brings serious and lasting harm to Buddhism. When you were a layperson before, in the past, whether you acted erratically or however you were behaving, others wouldn't really notice much. They might just think, this person has some mental issues, or this person is really pitiful. But once you put on the monastic robes, and then you behave erratically, everyone will say, look at this monk, this follower of Shakyamuni Buddha. What is this? This bald head, all of this and that. If that's the case, when you were still a layperson, even though you didn't contribute much to Buddhism, you also didn't cause any harm. But now, because of your mental state, because of your behavior, because of your attire and all sorts of reasons, so becoming a monk, you shouldn't think that after ordaining everything will be fine. In fact, the responsibility of being ordained is also very heavy. Yesterday, I actually spoke with some lay teachers and told them that as teachers, the expectations for teachers, not to mention our inner wisdom, but even our outward appearance as a teacher, if a teacher chooses to dye their hair each and every day and decides to dress up in an extremely flashy way, almost like a demon, for example, then you might not look like a teacher at all. Your clothing too. One moment you're wearing ragged clothes, the next moment you're wearing this or that. As someone who is supposed to be an engineer of the human soul, I'm afraid that's not appropriate. This also applies to us who are ordained. No matter what, truly, wherever I go, I can only wear a red robe. I can't wear black either. Nor can I wear anything with patterns. Nor can I wear white. Why is that? Because of my identity. This is the choice I made. In the same way, just like before, many people nowadays think that ordaining is a very good thing. On one hand, ordaining is indeed very good. But on the other hand, as you might expect, being ordained is not really that simple. So about this point, I want to tell everyone there's no need to rush and think, I must ordain now, as if after ordaining you would truly become a Buddha. But in reality, that's not how it is. Many people, after ordaining, actually experience even more pressure and even more inconveniences than they might have anticipated. Especially for people like you, you really need to think it through carefully. I'm not trying to stop anyone. If you want to ordain somewhere, I can't stop you, nor is there any reason to. There's really no need for me to stop you. But when it comes to ordaining, don't think that nowadays I see many people ordain. It's not ordination out of renunciation. It's just as if they're simply really afraid of society. Indeed, some things you see in movies have now become reality. Because society as a whole is at this moment very dark right now. People think that maybe things will get better after ordaining. But aren't monastics also individuals who originally come from society? From what I see, sometimes monastics are sometimes the same. It's just a change of clothes, that's all. Greed, anger, ignorance, they still have all of it. If they cultivate themselves a bit better, maybe things will improve a little. If they don't, it's pretty much the same as before. Because taking the precepts only takes a single day. Other than that, if you don't study, contemplate and practice, if you don't properly tame your own mind stream, You're still the same person at the core. It's just that your physical appearance has actually changed just a little bit on the surface. So I think in Buddhism, the merit of ordination is indeed great, but everyone should also pay attention and consider things from a long-term perspective for the future. Of course, right here among all of us, as you know, there are certain specific requirements for ordination. If everyone follows these requirements, these are the rules set for the monastic community. A few years ago, I established them together with everyone after mutual discussion. If there are any exceptions, there's really nothing we can do about it. Especially now our institute is becoming more and more strict. In the future, there is really no need for everyone to insist on being in a place like this. At the present moment, all our spaces here are not only completely full to the limit, but actually really overflowing. Every day, they're trying every possible way they can find to reduce the numbers. This way, things will be a bit better. Every place has a certain capacity to bear things. But if you truly want to ordain, if you really want to do something, there are places all over the world, but it's difficult everywhere. As a monastic, if you can truly listen, contemplate and practice, and uphold pure precepts, that is the best. In the past at Larunga, we had a group of such dedicated and committed monastics. Indeed, for many decades, there have been such wonderful opportunities available. But in the future, whether it depends on past merit or not, it still remains to be seen. The merit you have accumulated can follow conditions as they arise. So perhaps each of us also has in our own lifetime a kind of good fortune or blessing. Although we may not, like the Buddhas of the past, have such great qualities of realization and attainment, this is not something everyone has. But after obtaining a human body, we have had the opportunity to listen, contemplate, and practice the teachings, and also the chance to ordain and receive precepts. For the future, it depends on each person's causes and conditions. There's no need to force anything. I'm already past the age limit, but I insist on doing this or that. Right now, that's not allowed here. Oh, but I have to do it anyway. There's really no need for that. Just follow the conditions and pursue your own. Perhaps you could say, strive for what you believe to be your ideal, or the goal that feels most meaningful to you. Next, it mentions, Namo Supreme Vaidurya, Flower Buddha, Namo Color of Vaidurya and Gold Buddha, and Namo Treasury of Gold. Namo Blazing Light Buddha, Namo Blazing Root Buddha. As for this Blazing Light Buddha and Blazing Root Buddha, actually here the word blazing means burning. Meaning clearly here today indeed. However, these two Buddhas mentioned above, it seems that in the Tibetan version now present available currently, in our Dunhuang edition, they only appear once. In this version, they also appear below. There are two occurrences. But in the Tibetan text, they only appear once. Sometimes, perhaps during the final editing process, if something appears twice, it might simply be considered an extra instance, or if it appears twice, it might also be seen as reasonable. Actually, all of this still needs to be examined carefully. Namo Earthseed Buddha, Namo Moon Image Buddha, Namo Sun Sound Buddha respectfully here, Namo Liberation Flower Buddha with devotion, Namo Adorned Radiance Buddha sincerely now, Namo Ocean Awareness, Miraculous Power Buddha humbly always. Sometimes for us today present, awareness also means wisdom or consciousness. Namo Water Light Buddha, Namo Great Sound Buddha, Namo Great Fragrance Buddha, Namo Free from False Defilements Buddha, Namo Renouncing Aversion Mind Buddha, without a mind of aversion, very steadfast. Unlike some of us who have made vows, as soon as we encounter even a small difficulty or problem and they just say, I quit now, it's too exhausting. Namo Jeweled Flame Buddha, Namo Wondrous Crown Buddha, Namo Courageous Standing Buddha, Namo Merit Holding Wisdom Buddha, Namo Defective Sun and Moonlight Buddha. Perhaps that radiance is very powerful. Namo the Sun and Moon Lapis Lazuli Light Buddha of Radiant Wisdom. Namo the Supreme Lapis Lazuli Light Buddha. Namo the Most Eminent Buddha of Perfect Enlightenment. Namo the Bodhi Flower Buddha. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, one source is the Sutra of the Names of Buddhas. The Sutra of the Names of Buddhas was translated by Bodhiruchi. In that Sutra of the Names of Buddhas, there seem to be 11,093 Buddha names here today now, spread across 12 volumes, clearly indeed carefully. There are also other different translations available presently. So if we have time sufficient enough, it's best to take a look at these Buddha names and recite them ourselves. By doing so, we plant virtuous roots in our own mental continuum, which also brings great merit. As stated in the Avatamsaka Sutra, I would rather endure suffering to hear the Buddha's name. I would rather endure hardships, if it means I can obtain even a single Buddha's name, than to enjoy all pleasures and not hear the Buddha's name. I would rather be willing to endure some suffering in order to obtain the Buddha's name, than to truly experience all the pleasures of the world without receiving Buddha's name. Nowadays, in some remote places, there are some people with good fortune. Although they may enjoy all sorts of worldly pleasures, they might go their whole lives without ever hearing a single Buddha's name. Sometimes when I visit some remote places, I especially wish that if someone here could recite a Buddha's name, or if there were an outdoor Buddha statue to be seen, even if people just glanced at it, it would plant a seed in the alaya consciousness of their eye faculty, or plant a seed in the alaya consciousness of their ear faculty, because our 5 faculties ultimately all return to the alaya consciousness in the end. If a seed is carefully planted in the alaya consciousness, then lifetime after lifetime it will eventually blossom and bear fruit. So in this life we have encountered so many Buddha names, and this is not without reason. As I mentioned to you the other day, if we are able to hear the sound of the Buddha, it is actually the result of having made offerings to countless Buddhas in the distant past. Although there may be some Buddhas present to specific histories, such as ancient Jataka tales, we are not particularly clear about, but it doesn't matter if we don't know. As for these Buddhas, we should show them respectful devotion and faith. If everyone frequently recites the names of the Buddhas, it is extremely meaningful. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye